The Molten Canopy, Iron Dome Overload Part 1. The blistering sky there inside the Northern Command Air Defense Vault was thick, heavy, and hot with the collective anxiety of 40 elite operators. For over 30 years, Colonel David Vance had watched the skies, defending the population below from falling iron. He knew the precise geometry of terror. But he had never felt a heat quite like this. Beside him sat Captain Elena Rostova. The tension between them was palpable, born from weeks of working double shifts in this cramped subterranean bunker, their shoulders brushing in the dim crimson light, their shared glances carrying a desperate weight as the world burned outside. "David," Elena whispered, her voice low, a breathless murmur against the constant electronic hum of the climate control units. "We have multiple launches from the northern ridge. A lot of them." David stepped closer, leaning over her console. The scent of ozone and her perfume mixed in the narrow space. He looked at the main tactical radar wall. The pristine green display didn't just flicker. It shattered. A cascading wall of crimson indicators began to rain down from the upper atmosphere. 10 targets became 50. 50 became 500. Within 90 seconds, the radar sweep was a solid, throbbing mass of hostile trajectories, tactical air defense. Array, threat assessment thinking targets, 1010. Detected objects available interceptors, 120 Tamir-class missiles remaining saturation. Index, critical overload 900% above threshold. "It's a saturation blanket," David said, his jaw tightening as he stared at the screen. "They are trying to drown us in data." The enemy had unleashed a swarm of low-cost, radar-reflective decoy cheap carbon fiber shells packed with electronic noisemakers designed to look exactly like standard short-range rockets. But hidden somewhere within that cloud of 1,000 ghosts were 10 true monsters, hypersonic cruise missiles. Tracking toward the city at Mach 6, Part 2, the algorithmic asphyxiation engaged the automated prioritizer. David ordered, his hand resting firmly on the back of Elena's chair, feeling the rigid tension in her spine. "Let the AI sort the wheat from the chaff. System is processing," Elena replied, her fingers flying over the trackball interface. The automated defensive core, dubbed Sky Shield, hummed to life. Its complex algorithms were programmed to evaluate threat vectors based on speed, trajectory, and estimated impact points, automatically assigning the precious remaining interceptors to the highest yield targets. But instead of filtering out the noise, the system began to choke. The extreme data density was too high. The decoys were entering the lower atmosphere first, descending rapidly toward the perimeter. Because they were closer and their trajectories calculated direct hits on civilian infrastructure. The AI's prioritization loop buckled under the sheer immediacy of the threat. System error. Resource exhaustion, low priority. Q. 100% allocated to close-range targets decoys. Interceptor status, launching batteries 1 through 4 warning, hypersonic anomalies. Tagged as low priority due to range delay. No. Elena gasped, her skin flushing hot under the glare of the warning screens. The AI is biting on the bait. It's launching our remaining interceptors at the cheap decoys. It's emptying our magazines on plastic and copper foil. Outside, the subterranean vault shook as 20 interceptor missiles blasted out of their vertical launch cells, roaring into the night sky to destroy targets that didn't matter. Behind the wall of decoys, lagging just a few miles back, the 10 hypersonic threats were plunging through the upper atmosphere. Because they were traveling at extreme altitudes before their final terminal dive, the AI categorized them as secondary threats. "The system is blind to the trick," David hissed. "In 4 minutes, we will be completely out of interceptors, and those 10 hypersonics will penetrate our defense umbrella completely unhindered. They'll level the entire district." Part 3, the thermal drag. Countdown clock on the master console was bleeding away in bright red numbers. Time to terminal. Impact, 140 to remaining interceptors. 40 units air in the bunker felt suffocatingly scarce. The automated voice of the defense system continued its serene, maddening count. Completely oblivious to its own impending doom. Elena looked up at David, her eyes wide, reflecting the crimson glow of the terminal. We can't override the prioritization code manually. The data density is too thick for a human operator to click on 1,000 targets individually. We don't have the reaction time. Then we change what the radar looks at, David said, his voice dropping into a calm, fierce register. He reached down, his hand covering hers on the trackball, guiding her fingers to the master sensor configuration menu. The heat of her hand was a stark contrast to the cold metal of the console. We aren't going to look at the radar cross-section anymore. We are going to filter by friction. Elena's eyes lit up with sudden understanding. Thermal drag signatures. A cheap carbon fiber decoy traveling at standard subsonic speeds barely warms up in the atmosphere. But a hypersonic missile traveling at Mach 6 generates immense atmospheric friction. Its nose cone ionizes the air, creating a blistering, superheated plasma shroud that glows like a star on infrared sensors. Strip away the active radar feed, David commanded. Reroute the tracking matrix to the long-range thermal imaging cameras. Filter out any target under 1200 degrees Celsius. Elena slammed her palm onto the manual override lock. Tearing control away from the automated AI, the command room screens glitched violently, dropping the green radar plots and shifting to a stark, raw black and white infrared spectrum. Instantly, the 900 flashing crimson dots vanished from the screen. The decoys went completely invisible. Left behind on the black display were exactly 10 blinding, white-hot streaks cutting through the sky like comets. The 10 hypersonic missiles were completely exposed, their extreme thermal drag signatures lighting them up against the cold backdrop of space. Target lock acquired on true vectors. Elena breathed, a sharp, triumphant exhale escaping her lips. Fire everything we have left, David said softly. Elena slammed the physical launch master switch. The final 40 interceptor missiles erupted from the surface batteries, their rocket motors thundering through the bedrock of the bunker, guided no longer by a confused digital algorithm, but by the raw, undeniable heat of physics. The interceptors veered sharply into the upper atmosphere. On the screen, the white-hot comets converged with the defensive tracks. One by one, the bright streaks detonated, blooming into massive thermal clouds on the infrared display before fading into nothingness. 10 out of 10, neutralized, the automated alarms silenced, leaving only the ragged, synchronized breathing of David and Elena in the quiet of the vault. The canopy had held. David slowly lifted his hand from hers, their fingers lingering for a fraction of a second as the fresh, cool air of the bunker's secondary ventilation cycle began to wash over their faces, chasing away the heat of the siege.